Matthew chapter 21, verse 12. Jesus enters the temple courts and he drives out all who were buying and selling there, overturning the tables of the money changers and the seats of those selling doves. And then he declares to them, "It is written, my house will be a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." Let's stop right there. What he just did is he quoted two verses, one from Isaiah chapter 56, and then another line just all willy-nilly from Jeremiah chapter 7. But they're not talking about what Isaiah is about or anything. That's not the point. That's not what Christianity does. Christianity just takes lines out and says, how does this apply to your life? Instead of going, well, how does this apply to your relationship with God? Right? Just little one-liners here and there. And a child shall lead the way. Well, what does that mean? What's going on here? They don't tell you that. Anyways, let's take a look at Isaiah chapter 56 real quickly here before we continue. It starts off in verse 1 by saying, maintain justice and do what is right. That's what the whole Tanakh is about, is seeking justice. Okay? As you read along through the Torah and the prophets and then the writings, all you hear about is pursuing justice. Okay? It's not about having faith in something, or it's about pursuing justice and believing in God and God alone. Now, the story of Jesus cleansing the temple is in all the Gospels. In John's Gospel, it happens very early in Jesus' career, whereas the Synoptic Gospels has it happening like at the end of his career, right before he gets arrested. But what they don't tell you is that the reason people have doves and money lenders outside the temple is because people come from all over the place to bring their sacrifices. And it's easier to just buy an animal once you get there than it is to lug one through the desert, right? So they have every right to be there, and you have to change money because you can't bring coinage into the temple that has pagan idolatry on it, like a picture of Caesar on it. Now here's a good line. You don't hear Jesus saying this one. 118 verse 8 in Psalms. It says, "It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man." Okay, than to trust in Jesus. Well, people are like, well, Moses was a man. Yeah, that's true. So how do we know which one to believe, Moses or Jesus? Well, Moses has something that Jesus and Paul doesn't have, a nationwide revelation, okay? So they got a little bit more credibility there. Everybody heard God in front of Moses at Mount Sinai. Not just Paul walking down the street by himself, or Jesus going, look, I pulled a rabbit out of the hat, you must believe me, or something bad will happen to you when you die. Psalm 118 verse 9, it's better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. Okay? Jesus is there to test us. Okay? God said in Deuteronomy 13 he was going to send false prophets. Now let's look at the story of the barren fig tree in Matthew chapter 21, from verses 18 through 22. Jesus gets up in the morning and goes into town. He's hungry. He sees a fig tree, and there's nothing on it, so he curses it, and immediately the fig tree withers. Okay, there's a couple problems here. Well, there's obviously, if we want to appease the atheists, there's a contradiction there. We'll get to that in just a minute, but the bigger problem is that the Torah tells us not to kill fruit trees, even in times of siege. Now, here's a slight contradiction. In Mark's Gospel, which was written before Matthew, remember what I said about Matthew being an improvement on Mark's Gospel? Everything that happens in Mark, if it's one blind man getting healed in Matthew's story, it's going to be two blind men. If it's one donkey, well, it's going to be two donkeys in Matthew's Gospel. The withered fig tree, well, he curses it and it dies immediately in Matthew's Gospel. In Mark's Gospel, he curses the fig tree, and then he goes and he cleanses the temple. And then the next day, as they're coming back, in Mark chapter 11, verse 20, he says, look, the tree is withered the next day. So again, Matthew's just kind of speeding things up here. His miracles become a little bit effortless and quicker and easier to do. He's super Jesus in Matthew.